Giving up your Friday night, I know it's school holidays, busy lives, lots of things going on, and I commend you for giving up your time to come out and get better. We all want to try and continually get better with our coaching, get more knowledge, get more experience, and whether it's formal education courses or it's informal coach development activities such as coaching clinics. I'd really like to thank Peter Lonigan and Basketball Australia for the opportunity to tap into a really great, to get access to Coach Dave Love. Dave's currently coaches Orlando Magic, has been involved in the NBA. He's coached youth kids all the way up to NBA superstars. Even a couple of hours, I was fortunate enough to be in with a group of coaches at the Centre of Excellence this morning. It was just terrific, and I can see that he's got his philosophy down around shooting, but it's a simple approach, it's clear, and there's a lot of clarity around his philosophy around coaching. So would you please put your hands together for Coach Dave Love?
Perfect. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for giving up your time and being interested enough to come and spend your time with me. I really appreciate that. My plan is to I did 3 presentations for Peter's group over Wednesday, Thursday, was that the days of the week, down in Ballarat, which was wonderful. And so I'm going to try and put all 3 presentations, or definitely the bulk of 2, into this 1 hour, but just kind of take it where it needs to go as much as possible. So don't be shy. If you feel like your question is highly appropriate to that moment, then don't be shy about interrupting it and asking something specific. If you feel like it's a more general question, I'm going to save time at the end for whatever tangents we want to take, and then I'm happy to hang around afterwards and answer questions until midnight if you want. So if you have something really, really specific at that point that you want to go over, or you just want some advice on your career, as much as I can offer, I'm happy to help. So just to recap my background, I started doing shooting camps for 12-year-olds in 2001, and that was really my dream, was if I could make some supplementary income from doing basketball shooting camps in my hometown, that would be awesome. And I started doing that, and I challenged myself to get good at that. And then I started to work with university athletes in 2005 and challenged myself to be really as good as I could be at that level. And then my mentor phoned one day in 2009 and said, expect a phone call from the Phoenix Suns. I've recommended you for a job. And all of a sudden the blood rushed from my head as I thought, I'm not ready for that. And over the next 24 hours, wrapped my brain around, wait a second, I am ready for that. And I worked for the Phoenix Suns in 2009-10. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I was the shooting coach that helped Tristan Thompson switch from left-handed to right-handed. And I'm proud to say he shot a career high that year in 2013-14. And then I was hired by the Orlando Magic, worked 4 years for them. Most notably with Aaron Gordon, who I'm proud to say came into the NBA as a 42% free throw shooter. And in his rookie year shot 72% from the free throw line. And each player that I worked with in Orlando shot a career high. So everything that I'm going to talk about is based on results. And there are a number of different ways to get results. And I'm not going to teach you what the way that shooting should be taught. That would be very, very arrogant of me. I don't get to make those decisions. I'm going to teach you the way that I teach shooting. And I'm constantly trying to grow myself and trying to improve and challenge my own ideas and compromise on things that I believed in the beginning that maybe I need to revisit. But it's all based on the evidence that I get from the results of players. And I know it works. All good?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So then, if we did that perfectly, it would look like the ball rolling along the floor. And obviously that ball is never going to go through the hoop. We would like the ball to go up in the air. So we need to create energy that goes at the hoop and straight up in the air. And if we can do that perfectly, the ball is always going to go online. Okay, and we're going to be a good shooter. Okay, so we need to identify with our body, or how many things can we use to generate energy along the target line straight up in the air. How many things are creating energy away from the hoop, and then try to improve those habits. We want to try and get as perfect as we possibly can, but the reality is we're a human being. We're not going to do it perfectly. We just want to do it better. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of non-negotiables. Peter has some notes on a clinic that I did, which is basically my 3 non-negotiables with shooting. 3 things that regardless of the player or regardless of their technique, I think everybody needs to have. And first one we'll talk about is I need them to be as balanced as possible. We defaulted as a culture into talking about getting feet shoulder width apart. I like the idea. I hate the body part. I don't talk about shoulder width apart. I talk about hip width apart. So look down at your hips right now, figure out how wide they are, and then create an opening in between your feet that is wide enough to fit your hips between. So I would go a little bit wider. Good. And maybe even a little wider still. Hips are basically the same as shoulders width, so it's nothing different. It's just a different reference point. Perfect. Name a player that has feet that wide when they shoot. Klay Thompson. Is he pretty good? Yeah. So when you have your feet wide apart, you're super stable. And I can prove that by saying, okay, there, Charlie is able to stop his energy. If I had him bend his legs even more, then we could really apply a lot of energy to Charlie, and he can withstand that. If I had him put his feet right together, if you can do that for me, Charlie, and I apply just a little bit of force, I can still get him off balance. Okay? If he's not able to stop that energy, then it's given to the basketball and he's going to miss to the left. Okay? We want to be wide enough within our base that we can stop the bad energy that we create by moving on the floor, stop the bad energy that defenders give to us, and shoot as stationary shot as possible. Okay? It's not going to always be possible, but we're fighting to get as stationary as possible. So, non-negotiable number 1, we got to get as on balance as possible. Non-negotiable number 2 is we have to shoot the middle of the basketball with the middle of our hand. If you can shoot the middle of the basketball with the middle of your hand, the ball goes straight. So I'm going to have Charlie put the ball up at his set point, sort of around forehead position. And I would like 90% of players to have their index finger, their pointer finger, on the bottom of the ball. I want the middle of their hand on the very bottom of the ball and slightly towards the back, because we want the ball going up and forwards. So get the middle of your hand on the bottom of the ball towards the back to push it up and slightly forward. Why the index finger? Why not the middle finger? It's named the middle finger. Everybody, if you could take a moment, and Charlie, I'll have you do this, you can just kind of turn and face the group. Take a grip on an imaginary basketball with your shooting hand. And this is going to be very true for most, probably absolutely true for quite a few of you, and there'll be a small minority that this isn't accurate for. I want you to measure the distance between the tip of your index finger and the tip of your thumb. Use your other hand to measure that distance. And then compare that distance to the tip of your index finger to the tip of your pinky. So measure that, compare it to here. For, I would say, 90-ish% of players that I've experienced in hundreds of camps, that distance is very close or exactly the same. Okay? If it is, you just confirm this is the middle of the hand. You will get some players, especially young players, who put their thumb in close together, and what we need to do is spread that thumb out to make our hand nice and wide, and then measure again. Okay? We don't want to make our hand needlessly small. Bigger hands will control the ball better, so try and get your hand spread out nice and wide, and then check to see those distances. Charlie has a very flexible pinky finger, so his middle is actually going to be, let's find the nozzle of the basketball. It was there? Did you have it on? Oh, there it is. Okay. Split it. Go right about, yeah, right in about there. Now let's measure again. Okay, so for you, this is going to be a split grip. And again, it's going to be, in my experience, 90% of people will be index finger, 10% will be a split grip. Nobody has the middle of the middle finger as the middle of their grip. Okay, very hard. And you can see I have a couple of great pictures on Instagram of people who are trying to put their middle finger on the bottom of the basketball, and you can see that there is more coverage over on the left side of the basketball than there is on the right. Therefore, your hand is going to push the ball to the right. If you push the left side of the ball more than you push the right, it goes in the opposite direction. We want to push both sides evenly, and that will keep the ball on line going straight up in the air. Okay? The next part of this, and probably the most understood part of it, is I want that finger along the target line as much as we can get in the shot. If you put the ball up at the release point there for me, Charlie, a little bit higher. Just before release, that index finger, or whatever is the middle of the hand, needs to be along the target line, so that when Charlie snaps his wrist, that index finger stays on the bottom of the ball. If he were to go across the target line here, as he snaps the wrist, if I can sort of hold the ball for you, you come over onto the right side ever so slightly, and you're going to push the ball left. Now we need the non-shooting hand to push it back to the right and try and get those two variables to cancel out. That's a complex shot. The alignment of the index finger is the content or the contact point with the basketball. This has to be correct at your release point. Otherwise, it's just simple physics. The ball is not going to go straight. Okay? We miss this a lot of times as coaches because just like we talked about shoulder width apart, we tend to talk about elbow in. And they are related, but it's not the elbow that matters, it's how you contact to the basketball. They do fit together. The elbow does help you get your index finger along the target line, but you can even overdo that. You can get elbow in too much, index finger goes across the target line in the opposite direction, and we're now pushing the ball to the right. This is what has to be correct, not necessarily this, and depending on how the player's body is built, there might be some variability in here. That's not to say it's wrong to say get your elbow in. I do say that at times, just to mix up the message that it's index finger along the target line. That is what I'll refer to in different ways 90% of the time, but I am searching for ways that players understand that. So, non-negotiable number 2, the ball, or you need to shoot the middle of the ball with the middle of your hand. Okay, everybody understand that part now? Non-negotiable number 3, we have to get the ball up in the air. Okay? I used to talk about we have to get the non-negotiable number 3 was getting your non-shooting hand off the ball, but ultimately that's shooting the middle of the ball. Okay? It's now we got to get the ball up in the air. So a couple of different ways to create art. Charlie, I'll get you back on the facing the hoop. Let's put the ball up at your set point and try and bend your wrist back. Yeah, perfect. I talk about trying to form 3 sides of a square, which Charlie's doing an excellent job of right now. The reason being we want the elbow low enough to be able to lift and generate power, and we need our hand underneath the ball. If you want the ball to go up, you need to get your shooting hand under the ball. If Charlie were to flatten out his wrist and we get the hand on the back of the basketball, it can't be a lifting motion. Yeah, you're already feeling that ball's going forward. Even if you try and lift, it's not going to go up in the air very high. We have to get our wrist bent back to get underneath the basketball, and then in a position, again, with the position that the elbow's low enough to generate lift. So the wrist gets flat, the ball is going to go flat. But there's another way to create a flat shot, and that's wrist being bent back potentially. Oh, and just keep the ball, let it drift back over top of your head. Okay, perfect. Charlie now has his elbow already high, but we haven't started the shooting motion yet. We're still into the lifting, but we haven't begun the shooting motion, and he has no lift left in his elbow. Okay? It is already lifted. There's no way to go a little bit higher. So then your motion of your hand starts up, but continues forward, and then actually finishes down. And forward then down doesn't create up. We want to be loaded with our elbow low, keeping the ball in front of us, not letting it drift back over our heads so that we can continue lifting up through that motion. So those are the 3 points that I really try and focus on. Regardless of technique, regardless of theory, you have to get as balanced as possible. You have to shoot the middle of the ball, and you have to be able to get the ball up in the air. Okay? Here, let's shoot a couple here, Charlie. So let's go there. Good. Outstanding. So when I see a new player, the first thing I do, and you can shoot as I'm talking, I watch the flight of the ball first. And the very first thing that I start with is the rotation of the basketball. Does it spin purely? And if it spins purely, that means the player has shot the middle of the basketball with the middle of their hand. Okay? If it's not spinning purely, we've shot one side of the basketball more than the other, which is causing the ball to rotate in the opposite direction. The spin isn't really the problem. The spin is the indicator that there is a problem, which to me is even more valuable. So it's so hard, especially when you don't have this as your profession, to sometimes look at a shot and say, what's wrong? Like, what do I fix? Well, you start with the spin of the ball, and almost every single young player, sort of 12 years old or younger, the rotation is not going to be good because they don't shoot the middle of the basketball. Charlie has pretty decent rotation here. The arc is pretty good. So we want to try and figure out how we can help him. Arc might even be a little bit too high. And this is a new idea for me. So are you guys familiar with the NOAA machine, the arc, or the machine that measures arc, and you set it up and it's now a camera above the hoop, and NBA teams have it. I'd be surprised if any youth programs have it because it is quite expensive. But it will call out 45, 47, 52 of the arc of entry in that particular shot. And we had it installed in Orlando when I was there, and the guy installing it started to explain to us that the ideal arc is 45 to 47 degrees. And he said worse than that obviously flattens out the flatter shot, gives you a smaller target, which I think makes sense to all of us. And so that isn't good. But then he said too much arc is actually equally as bad. And I said, well, I didn't understand it. I said, how's that bad? Like, it just makes the hoop bigger. How is more arc as bad as not enough arc? And then they posted a video just recently which finally explained to me. If you shoot with too much arc, you're starting to get into the 50s in arc, which is from this distance well above the top of the backboard. Applying the same amount of force to each shot, if you miss by a degree your intended trajectory, it dramatically affects the distance. Whereas if you're in that sweet spot of 45 to 47 degrees and you miss your trajectory by 1 or 2 degrees, it doesn't really affect the distance that much. So you're allowed a little play, a little mistake in there without it really changing the outcome all that much. But if you intend to shoot it if you are shooting it high, you shoot it a little higher or a little lower than you intended, it can really cause much shorter or much longer than you intended. And so that all of a sudden made a lot more sense to me. And now I believe, okay, too much can be a little bit of a challenge. Charlie, can I borrow, Alex, was it? Perfect. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate your help. So we assess the problem with somebody's shot. We figure out, okay, they're using their non-shooting hand. They have terrible balance. They have flat arc. My first goal is isolate the habit. What does that mean? What does that look like? Alex, let's say you shoot with your feet right together, okay? Alex shoots here, and we teach him that, okay, this is not good. Here's why it's not good. You're not going to be able to control the energy. You're going to be able to be easy to be knocked off balance, which will potentially cause negative energy to be given to the basketball. We teach the player, we educate them, and then we put them in the most simple environment that we can possibly put them to learn to do something different. And for me, that typically starts with stationary, really close to the hoop. Okay? If you were to take a snowboarding lesson, anybody ever gone snowboarding? It doesn't tend to happen down here. So do you know where you start your snowboarding lesson? On flat ground. You get strapped into your snowboard, and they, on flat ground, get you to stand up, and you just kind of play around with, like, can I now stand with my feet strapped into this board? And they move together as one unit instead of independently. And I got to keep my balance, but I can't step forward with one foot. I got to learn how to keep my balance. And they'll just have you play around for a little bit, and then they go to, do you know what the name of the hill that you start on? Really condescending name. The bunny hill. Okay? And it's usually, if that were the end of the bunny hill and this were the beginning, it might only be start about 10 feet high, very gradual slope, and you start in a very controlled manner, learning how to control yourself going down a very gentle slope. And as your skills increase, we increase the difficulty of the situation. And I think we know that in so many different environments, and we forget that in basketball and in shooting. That when you play the piano, you don't start with Mozart. You start with Baa Baa Black Sheep. When you learn to drive, you don't do it on the motorway, you do it on the car park. And really, if a player has a bad habit, we need to really simplify them, take them back to the car park, take them back to the bunny hill, and take them back to Baa Baa Black Sheep and correct the problem, and then layer drills to slowly make the situation more complex so they can learn to apply this new habit in challenging situations, not impossible situations. So here's what that kind of looks like to me. Again, imagining that Alex has his feet with his close together, we're going to say, all right, here's why. I want you to get your feet hip-width apart. Okay, perfect. And then on every shot, I want you to look and consciously confirm that they are in the correct position, this new, better position, even though it's uncomfortable, and shoot a shot out of that, and then change your feet, come back on the next shot, make a conscious decision over and over and over again, okay? And you can go ahead and start on that. I'll rebound for you, okay? And you're gonna back away, okay? And make a new conscious decision again, feet wider apart. And I will do this kind of work for an entire workout with the player at the NBA level. If this is what's holding you back, then we need to really start to build this and make this comfortable. And we can't move on until a player is capable of doing this well. So your first goal is, can they now get to the right position, and can they start to get good results in that position? If the position is better, then we've got to go by the results as well. And so just because he's starting to execute it, I mean, Alex is making a whole bunch of shots here, but imagining that he was missing, we now have to say, okay, can you get your feet wide apart and make shots? Then, as the talent or the ability in this new position increases, we need to build the situation along with their abilities. And I do that I have about 7 different layers of drills that layers that I add to drills to make them more complex. I can't now ask Alex, okay, you are capable of getting your feet wider apart. Go do that 1v1 versus LeBron James and get your feet wider apart. There's so many other things to think about in that situation. You're just going to go back to your old bad habits. And we need to build new, better habits. So you can stand with your feet wide apart. Can you back up a step? Can you hop forward, land on 2 feet with your feet wider apart? Okay, and it's not, and go ahead and shoot. And it's not that much more challenging than what we were just doing, which was making the conscious decision to start from here and shoot. Now it's, can you find that foot position? Good. And because it's not that much more challenging, we have a chance to be successful. Okay? You're just continually laying a stepping stone to get the person across the body of water without falling in the water. Your abilities are here. I can't jump to there. I'm going to get wet. I'll lay a stepping stone there for you. Okay? I'll lay another stepping stone there for you as you arrive safely. I'll lay another stepping stone there. Oh no, that's a little bit too far. Okay, we need a new stepping stone. We need somewhere in between to bridge that gap. And you're consistently finding, can you execute this new habit in this slightly more difficult situation? Alex is killing it. Can you now turn your body to that wall and hop, turn, or sorry, in the air, jump, turn, land with your feet nice and wide apart? Good, and then go ahead and shoot. And once you start to lay a foundation here, you can move through some of these layers really, really quickly. The first 3 layers I try to add, can you do this faster? Can you do it further out? Can you do it with simple movement? And we're even introduced simple movement. Alex is introducing a little bit of distance himself, okay? And a little bit of speed himself. And we're searching for that sticky point where he's trying to do it, but can't. And, or ideally, he can do it, but makes mistakes that he's aware of every once in a while. So it's challenging, but a challenge he can meet, as opposed to a challenge that he'll never be able to meet, and not so easy that it's not a challenge. Okay, we're trying to find that sweet spot where you can do it right 80% of the time, 70% of the time, and when you make a mistake, you go, ah, shoot, my feet were narrow. Okay? If you can find that sweet spot, you know exactly how you need to practice. And then it's just getting reps in that level and adding levels to it or layers to it as their skill increases. So Alex, pardon me, hasn't made a mistake yet, so we need to make this environment a little bit more challenging. Start facing that wall with your feet together. Or don't even do it together. Do something strange with your feet. Then turn, land. Perfect. Turn, land, nice and wide apart. Good. Okay. Now, so a little narrower on that. And so our job as the shooting coach is to point out what we see. Better. Good. Give me a different foot position facing that direction. Good. A little wider. And my goal at this stage is I'll give him the feedback over and over and over again until my hope is that as I'm about to say a little wider, he goes, oh, my feet were narrow on that one. And as soon as they have that recognition that, okay, that was a little bit narrow or my wrist flattened out, now we can really change the habits. And that's why I spend way more time than people think I should on the easy stuff early, because there isn't that recognition. There's not that, is it proprioception, is that the word that I want? Of awareness of what our body is doing. And so we need to start to understand why. I need to be the chess player that doesn't win games accidentally and go back, how did that happen? I won? How did that happen? I need to be the chess player that I'm strategically doing things, and when I lose, I know the move that costs me the win. Okay? We need to build that awareness. So the first 3 layers, just to recap, that we can add are a little bit of distance, and I will literally add it 1 foot at a time. When you start to get good results from here, can we do it from 1 foot out? And usually it's not that big of a challenge. Now can we do it 1 foot further out? And we'll usually find that sticky point where all of a sudden, this was great, this was great, this was great, this was great, this was average. Perfect. Now we know where to practice. I'll add speed. Start very conscious, making conscious decisions by looking. Slowly speed up where, okay, I'll look for you and I'll give you a feedback. You just see if you can feel it and go to progressing towards game speed. And I'll add simple movement. And simple movement is just 1 step. We've shown some of those already. Can you move to the side? Can you move to the other side? Can you rotate? Can you push off of 1 foot. And basically you're looking at every single move that you make in a basketball game and boiling it down to that last step. Can you forward pivot? Perfect, that's a curl. Okay. Can you push off to a hop? There's a flare. Can we push laterally into a 1-2 step? That might be a drift. Can we step forward, push back? Now we got to step back. And just, rather than asking them to execute the entire move, can we just execute the last step of that? And then we'll build backwards from there as their skill improves. The next layers, those first 3, early on, that's where I spend most of my time. The next layers that I'll add will be game movements. Can we actually execute the full curl cut, the full sprint the sideline into a corner drift? Can we do those game motions? And then can we learn to pick up dribbles and catch the basketball? So I'm going to get you, Alex, we're going to work on catching the ball. Spend a second just getting comfortable with index finger on the middle of the ball. Feel what that feels like. And then pay attention to, because you have a pretty solid grip, I can tell already, pay attention to where's the ball touching your hands. What is comfortable, what is correct, but what is also comfortable in there? How do you like to hold it? How much pressure is on? How wide apart are your fingers? How much are you holding the ball? Like, just pay attention to the feeling of that. And then I'm going to start really, really simply. I'll take the ball for you. You're going to try and just catch this really simple pass in exactly that feeling. So your index finger on the middle of the ball and along the target line in the correct position, but the comfortable position as well, without having to move your hands. If you fumble the pass at all, you just give it back to me. If you don't get the right feeling, you give it back to me. If you don't get in the right position, you give it back to me. If you do get it, you shoot. Okay? Good. So the skill of shooting is a macro skill within the game of basketball. Catching the ball cleanly is a micro skill within the skill of shooting. And if it's a micro skill, we can practice it. So we isolate it. If you can't get into the right hand position on the basketball, practice it. Isolate it in the beginning, make the situation more complex. Can you back up a step? While the ball's in the air, can you get your feet in the air hopping towards it, catch it cleanly in the correct grip? If you don't get it, give it back to me and take your step back again. And we think, can you catch a basketball? We think this is simple. This is not simple. It's simple to do it, the macro skill, but to get the micro details within it that will unlock our potential, that can be more challenging. That's fine. Isolate it. Are you finding little things? Do you continually make the same mistake? Yeah. Or is it a different mistake every single time? And don't lie to me, don't give me the answer you think I want to hear the truth. Are they different every single time?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, and that's fine. How do we get better at that?
Work on it.
We work on it, we practice it. And if I give you an environment where you say, where you're like, God, I can't do this, it's now on me to simplify the environment. If you can't do it, that's honest. But you're capable of doing it in an easy environment, so let's practice our skill at that point and find that sweet spot. Okay, and as we start to do better, we can add layers to this drill. We've added a little bit of movement. Can you now hop to the side? Okay, so now you're getting, we're going to go that way first. Can you hop to the side? Good, you saw you move your hands on that one. Okay, try and get right on the top of the ball. You're trying to catch it here as soon as you're moving. See if you can get as much as you can, index finger on the middle of the basketball. Good. Good. And we can start to introduce element of surprise as the skill improves, so that we can go there. not let the player know which way we're going. We can do different things. Can we start with your body turned and just really building up this skill? If this is a skill that's holding you back from being better, isolate it and work on it. Okay? If that's the reason that you're missing shots because you can't catch the ball cleanly, work on that skill. Then, Alex, I'll get Henry. Perfect. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it. Similar idea. Can you pass the basketball to yourself off the floor? Can you dribble the ball? Let's get you on the elbow here, Henry. And we're going to isolate the same kind of skill of, can you take a hard pound dribble, catch it in the shooting grip that you like? So take a moment and just kind of figure out, we want index finger to spread out nice and wide. How do you position your hands, get that feeling, memorize that feeling. Now, can you pound the ball into the floor? We'll go fairly firmly right now. If you bobble it, you don't get to shoot it. If you don't get the grip, you don't get to shoot it. If you do get everything correct, we'll shoot it from there, okay? Good. Now be careful because I watched you adjust your hand on the catch. And just to set the stage for you here, Henry, Anthony Bennett, first NBA player I did this drill with, and he was the #1 pick in the NBA draft. Now, he probably shouldn't have been, but that's not his fault. He's a good basketball player, one of the 500 best basketball players in the world. Took 15 dribbles before he took the first shot. So we need to set the stage for athletes. Like, if we're not great at something, that's fine. We'll just hold ourselves accountable to getting better at that at that skill, that micro skill. So hard pound dribble. Good. Good. Okay. Okay. All right. And then starting to add some of the same layers. Can you do that while moving? Can you pound dribble, 1-2 step into it? Can you pound dribble with a forward pivot? Can you pound dribble and push off without having to adjust your hands? If that's the micro skill that you need to work on, then we'll work on it. So we've got adding distance, adding speed, adding movement as the first 3. The next 2 are adding game movements and adding catches and dribbles into these drills. And you can start to combine drills. I have a couple of form shooting drills that I use where it will be just in this situation. I wonder if I should go over this. Henry, I'll move you back in. Let's go into the yellow line here. The first form shooting drill that I'll do really is isolating the, getting the middle of the hand on the middle of the basketball. Put the ball up at your set point for me. Put your non-shooting hand beside the basketball, but don't touch. Good. And then I want to see the index finger of the shooting hand on the bottom of the basketball and along the target line. You're going to hold that, bend your knees for me. Hold that position for 3 seconds. Let your body learn where it is, and then lift and snap your wrist. 1, 2, 3, lift and snap. Good. That's a pretty great shot. That's a great way to start. Okay. Feet set up. Isolate the habit of index finger on the bottom of the basketball. 2, 3, lift. Good. And if you do this well, the ball should never go offline. This is really, really simple. This is not easy. He's making it look easy right now. I've had every NBA player that I've worked with, some of them 7 foot tall, 25 years old, millions of dollars in the bank account, from this distance or even a step inside of this, airballing shots. Okay? Henry's making this look really simple, or really easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. So now you can go get set up in that position. I typically stand here. Good. 2, 3, lift. Because that way I can see the index finger. Okay. I want to stand, I want to see it. Hold up, stop. It was actually good, but I want these people to be able to see, like, move it a centimeter. If it needs to move a centimeter, you can go ahead when you're ready, Henry. If he's a centimeter off, correct it. Because that can be the difference between a left rim or right rim miss and a swish, even at this distance. Okay? When you do something slow moving, the whole reason you're doing it slow moving is to have time to be precise. So if that's the goal, be precise. I hate it when I see players doing form shooting where it's just they come in here and it's just throwing the ball up at the hoop and it's an imprecise motion. If you're going to do slowly, know why you're doing it slowly. Be precise about things that really matter. Can you hit the index finger on the bottom of the ball and along the target line? So that's the whole point of this drill. Getting the index finger on the bottom of the ball, making the right move. The next version of this will be ABC shooting. That was isolation drill, isolating the last part. ABC shooting is start the ball at triple threat. And, oh, already you're doing a great job. Index finger on the top of the ball, pointed at the target. We want the index finger on the target line as much as we possibly can, all the way through the shot. Bend your knees. Hold that position for a beat and just tell your body, this is my starting point. Now lift it to that position that we were just in. Take your non-shooting hand off and make the move that we were just making. Okay? If isolation drill is the move that we want to make, this drill we're now trying to find that position, that set point with our index finger on the bottom of the ball so that we can make that simple move. We just added a little movement to isolation drill. A, B, C. Good. And it's not uncommon for a player to do the first drill really, really well in time, move to this one, we've just made it a little bit harder, and their bad habits get exposed again. And then in this situation, we improve their skills and we try to apply it in the next situation because it's new, they're not very good at it. We practice and we get better and we add a layer when they're ready. A, B, C. Good. See if you can lift the ball up just a little bit more. Lift it up in the air, drop it down on the hoop a little bit more. A, B, C. Good. Even a little more if you want. A little higher. Trust it. It's okay to make mistakes right now. Right now, we are not worried about makes or misses. We're worried about new movements, new habits. Good? A, B, C. Good. Just specific for you here, I'll talk to you publicly in front of everybody else. When you get into your stance, you have a tendency to kind of move pelvis forward a little bit and shoulders back. See if you can keep your hips back and your shoulders forward a little bit more. So let's find our set point. Now, at this point, your spine is leaning at that angle, which is good. That's what we want. That's an athletic position. Push at that angle. So that spine is just going to slide this way rather than pivoting and leaning back. Okay? A, B, C. Good. Lift your elbow up in the air. And NBA level, I will do these two drills, isolation drill and ABC for the entire first workout. An hour of just this. You guys don't have that luxury. Your job is way harder than mine. You get 15 players at one time teaching everything and they know nothing. I get one player, one-on-one, every single day with somebody else even rebounding for me. I don't even have to rebound. My job is way easier than yours. So this kind of brings me to a point that I missed this weekend, and it just escaped my brain. Literally, I had it 5 seconds before that, and I lost it. I'm going to come back to it. Henry, no, that's not your, this is Henry. Don't tell me. That's Charlie. Charlie, can I get you at the top of the key? Okay, so we start to build better habits. Okay. Oh, sorry, I forgot to smooth this out. I'm going to put you on hold for a second. You can go back and sit down. Sorry. We are now learning to find that set point, but we're being very robotic and not very smooth with it. Can we then start to find that set point in a smooth motion? And the drill that I do, I call it slow to quick because I'm terrible at naming drills. Start the ball in triple threat position or your A position for me. Take 4 seconds to move the ball up to your set point, like smoothly 1, 2, 3, 4. But make sure during those 4 seconds that you're going to arrive at the correct set point. So don't be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go, oh shoot, it was supposed to be here. Try and be 1, 2, 3, 4. When you get there, just accelerate. See if we can do that without pausing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Good. Try and keep the ball a little closer to your body. So don't let it drift out this way and then back that way. See if you can just lift it straight up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. So with Henry, correct? Okay. You personally, I would focus on bending that wristband back a little bit more. So I would spend, if we had the luxury of just working with you right now, I would spend a bunch of time doing just isolation drill, because you have a tendency to get to that set point and let that flatten out a little bit and make a little bit more of a forward motion. We got to learn to get to here. So give me one isolation drill, wrist bent back. 1, 2, 3, lift and snap. Good. Give me an ABC where your wrist is bent back at that set point. Good. And then give me a slow to quick where your wrist is bent back at that set point. And you can play with it. You can jump back and forth, and ultimately this is kind of our goal. Okay. See if you can set that, or start setting it here on that one. You got it set, but it happened all at that last moment. Start to set it here, have it set, lift it up. Okay, set your wrist. That's better. Good, 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 good. Just trying to make them aware, put them in a position to do it successfully. Then can you start to add layers to that? Can you start to do this moving? Can you start to add a little speed? Instead of 4 seconds, can you make it 2 seconds? Can we do that on a catch? Can we do that after a dribble? And so I'll start to say things like, I want a 2-step drift to the baseline, 15 feet from the basket, catch, slow to quick. 2 seconds slow to quick. Like, give the instructor, like, here's the layers that we're combining. Charlie, can I borrow you now? Henry, I'll borrow you now in the corner. We're going to talk about how to layer defenders. You don't have to just add a live defender and expect a shooter to be able to shoot against it. I've got about 4 different. We'll give Charlie. We'll give Charlie the basketball, and we'll go right to the top of the key there. We're going to imagine that this is a curl cut or lift out of the corner, but we're going to simplify it and put, geez, the names are killing, Henry in a position where he's shooting a shot that he's comfortable from. Even though we may be working on a 3-point situation, that doesn't mean we have to work on it from the 3-point line. You can move in closer and work on it from closer and then apply further out. So what I want you to do, I'm going to provide just a little bit of contact so that you don't get to go exactly where you want, and you don't get to do it with your full attention. You get a little bit of a push off and a little bit of a distraction. Then, and about this point, I'm going to let you go so that you can turn your attention to a great catch with nice and wide feet. You're going to focus on now catching A, B, wrist bent back, lifting there, and we'll see if we can apply that new habit into this new situation. Okay, ready? Here we go. And sorry, at the hoop. So at the last moment, yeah, my instructions weren't very clear. So turn to face the hoop there, okay? Good. How are your feet?
Felt narrow.
Okay, I'm glad that you felt that. You're correct, they were. So why? Because you've been doing this for 7 minutes and it can't possibly expect you to do it perfectly. So let's simplify the situation. When you come off that, on that catch, can you hop and just be mindful, feet wide, set point, so A, B, C. It doesn't have to be fast, it's going to be in stages. We're kind of learning a dance move here, and you don't necessarily have to learn the dance at game speed. So here, just hop and catch and then stop. Good. A, are your feet wide? Good. A, B, C. Good. Excellent shot. Okay. That kind of exactly that again. So I'm just providing a little resistance. We're just trying to find that sweet spot where can he do things correctly. Oh, I'm sorry, that's going out there. As the skill improves, I'm going to now say, I'm going to play defense up until the catch. and then I'm going to back off. So I'm going to make the entire cut a little uncomfortable, and then I'm just going to veer off and let you do what you need to do. That doesn't mean that you get to speed up. We're going to still apply the habits of jump stop, wide feet, set point, A, B, C still in this situation. A, B, C, good. Let's try and do this now off a forward pivot. I don't think there's anything wrong with the hop, but let's see if we can incorporate different footwork into it. Okay. Good. Or even on that catch if you want to catch and into a 1-2 step with the forward pivot there. A, B, C. And this is awesome. This is exactly like we're accelerating through this, but this is the kind of, can you apply? And we're finding already as soon as we speed up, we forget all kinds of things. Perfect. Slow down. Be mindful. Hold accountable. Are we practicing the habit? If we continue to go at that speed and your habit is to flatten out your wrist, you're not going to be able to build a new habit. So the situation that we've designed to help, we're not actually practicing the micro skill that is holding you back. So learn to apply in this kind of a situation. The next layer that I would add is coming off that catch, and I'm allowed to contest, but I'm not allowed to block the shot. And then the final layer would be I'm allowed to contest and block if I'm able to. So I would layer the defender in about 3 or 4 different layers, and no hard fast rules. If you got other layers you want to add, find them and play with it. The last layer, and this is where I'm really trying to get better myself as a coach, oh perfect, is decisions. That we in workouts say, we preordain, I want you to stand here, I want you to make this cut, I want you to shoot that shot, then I want you to go there, and I want you to do this, and we tell the player exactly what to do. They get into a game where they have to make the decisions and they can't execute the skill because we never practice it in the environment of them making decisions. And I'm not good at this yet. I'm trying to challenge myself to get better at this. I'll get Charlie, if you can be the passer, Henry is the shooter. Charlie's going to give a cue, and we're going to start with just 2 cues, and you're going to have to make the read based on what the cue is. The cues don't make the cues up, make the decisions up as you go along. This is where I start, but again, I'm very new to this idea. If you pass the basketball and you drop your hands down, that is your signal. Defender has their hands down, you shoot. Okay? If Charlie passes the basketball and leaves his hands up like that, that's a signal he wants the basketball back. You're going to pass the basketball back, and would you just stand in that situation? Probably not. You would probably relocate to a different spot. So we're just going to slide to a different spot. We're going to shoot, catch and shoot in that shot. Why are we doing this? And always ask yourself why. Well, like, what am I trying to learn from this drill? Don't do any drills, and then you just shoot. Build better habits within the shot. So you need to be feet wide, and you're going to try, you're not going to do this one very well, but we're going to try and get wrist bent back, okay? That one you have a chance of doing well. So 2 cues, you guys play for a second. Good. And there's constant feedback. When you give feedback to a player, try and do it instantly, like balls in the air, and give them feedback. Great. And have them know what you're giving feedback about. Good feet, love it. And it's not, make them understand it's not based on the result, it's how well did you execute better habits. Good. Okay. And you can play with any different kind of cues that you want. The ones that I'm starting to incorporate are, okay, then hands up, that's the signal to dribble drive. And then I'll add the layer of one hand up and one hand in the opposite. That's the signal. There's a defender over here, go that direction. Or vice versa, you're going this direction on a one dribble pull-up. Giving cues with feet, where if you're attacking off a dribble, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to adjust my feet, and you've got to make a read to attack the high foot. And do you see a high foot here? You're going that direction. You see a high foot going this way, going that direction, and I'll go into ABC. Can you make this move. Can you get to there? Good feet. Get your non-shooting hand off the basketball. It doesn't have to just be a shot. It can go back to working on some of the form shooting drills. You can incorporate form shooting into game situations. Working on that shot doesn't have to come from that distance. It can come from this distance. So distance, speed, movement, simple movement, game movement, dribbles, catches, and defenders and decisions. So those are kind of the 7 layers that I'll add to drills to lead a player towards game speed. Just because you add one, if they're not successful, that doesn't mean that you have to take away the one that you just added. You can take away anything. We add a defender, we can slow down. We add a defender, we can move in. We add a defender, we can take away the catch and just say, do that same thing, but with the basketball in your hands the entire time and see if you can get to the right spot. Massage it and play with it and figure out how do I need to get into that correct, that new, better position and let players kind of learn from it. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate your help. Anybody have specific questions they want to get into? Coach.
Coach, do you have a preference on the release phase to maintain finger spread or index finger into the basket or towards the back of the ring, the target?
Every question I go back, anytime you question something, go back to what's the most simple thing I could do. And so the most simple thing I can do is to maintain the shape of the basketball. If I've made the shape of the basketball here, maintain the shape of the basketball through the wrist snap. If you start to see the thumb coming in, that's usually an indicator that they've pushed. Usually they push to the left, and so they're trying to pull the ball back to the right with the thumb. So that's something to pay attention to. We can go into these different wrist snaps and why these are a problem if you want to, but I will pay attention to it. If it's there versus here, I don't get too into that. Like, does it help? Or is it potentially causing harm? You just kind of have to figure out. And then, is it their biggest bad habit? Sometimes there are things that players do where you say, I don't love it, but it's not the biggest reason why they're missing. So let's challenge the biggest reason why they're missing so we're not given 28 things to think about necessarily. So always go back to simple. Go back to, is this a battle worth fighting? Which kind of brings me to the idea that don't, especially at the youth level, don't try and solve everything. We did a presentation on what would I teach with different age groups. And I think the advantage that you have working with an association or in a school where you have players for multiple years is you have them for multiple years. And if you can start to establish a skeleton or a framework or a matrix of, at this age we're going to teach this, and then hopefully that habit will be in place and we're going to teach that next and we're going to build it up, then you can fight battles you have a chance to win. You're not going to improve this with a 9-year-old. This is going to be a disaster no matter what you try to do because they're not physically strong enough. But you can improve this. So fight this battle with 9, 10, 11-year-olds so that they have a chance to be on balance and keeping their bodies simple. Once they start to get into 11, 12, 13, 14 years of age, can we grip the basketball correctly? Once we're starting to get into 14, 15, 16, can they make a simple shooting motion? And hopefully 16 plus, can we start to make the details, the specific things about their mechanics, improve those? Those are the kind of things that I would start to work on at different ages. Anybody else? Coach?
Which part of the basket do you tell players to look at?
Where do I aim? I've talked about the coils where the netting attaches to the rim and find the furthest one from you because I want to have lots of leeway to miss short. I don't want to aim for the front middle and miss short because then I get an air ball. I know I'm going to get tired, so I want to give lots of room to miss short as I get tired. So I aim for the farthest coil away from me. And I talked about this yesterday in Ballarat or the day before. Be careful, like be very specific with kids. Over teach this. Because I've had 2 experiences with kids where I said, all right, I want you to aim for the back of the rim. And the player came over on the baseline. This will be now the first shot that I've taken in multiple days. And they got there. And they were like, okay, perfect. They hit the back of the rim. And they seemed pretty happy with the results. And they did it over and over and over again. I said, where are you aiming? Back of the rim, where the backboard or the ring attaches to the backboard. I said, oh, no, that's only your reference point here. And so I had to be very specific with the language. And I even had a kid who was, I think, 18 years old, who was shooting jumpers and was missing erratically. And I asked him, I didn't expect the answer that I got by any stretch. I asked him, where are you aiming? And he said, top corner of the square. I said, pardon me? Sorry, what? Yeah, I'm aiming for the top corner of the square. My coach, when I was like 10, told me that you want to hit top corner of the square. I'm like, on layups, yes. And so he was trying to, he wasn't even trying to hit that target. That was just where he was looking. So he was trying to swish shots while looking at the top corner of the square. Be very clear, and then don't be afraid to confirm over and over and over again. Do you understand? Can you teach that back to me? What does that mean to you? Can you explain how you think about that? Because you may be surprised some of the things that you hear that you think nobody would ever make that mistake. Oh yeah, they might. There's 8 billion different possible mistakes out there, and we're going to make them all. Coach.
You talked about balance and swing fit rate. What do you teach young players? Do you normally focus on receiving the ball with a little hop, both feet, or do you get into the 1-2 or both?
My job is to prepare players for all situations. And we've got head coaches that have different opinions on different things. Some coaches say they want always an inside foot forward pivot. Some coaches that I want every pivot to be on your left foot as a right-handed shooter. I want everything to be off a hop. And the head coach gets to make that decision. Our job as development people, where even though you're a head coach at a youth level, you're also wearing the hat of a development person. I think our job is to prepare them for all of it. And so what I try to do everything in the beginning off of a hop, not because I think the hop is right, but because I want players to learn to push evenly with their legs. And I find that's easier to learn if they're doing the same thing at the same time. So I start with the hop, and then I try to apply the even leg push when their feet are doing different things at different times. So I only start with the hop and do that a lot early because I want to learn to push evenly with the legs. And then I move on to applying that into different situations. I don't think there is a right footwork. There are a couple of situations where there's definitely a most efficient, but if we're going to start to argue, and not suggesting that you are, but people like to argue, on an open catch and shoot 3, should you hop or should you 1-2 step into it? You should put the ball in the basket. Like if you do the right footwork and the ball doesn't go in, you don't get points. So I encourage players, know what you like to do. When you have time, do that, because that's going to give you the best chance of making the shot, which is the whole point of shooting it. But also work on all these different footwork so that when you don't have time and you're forced into a particular situation, at least you have a base level of comfort with that. Okay, so that's kind of the approach that I take with different footwork into shots. And if you're the head coach, you get to make the call on what you want your players to do based on what your theory is. Okay.
Coach, can you go through your points about missing right or left?
Yes.
Can you make that assessment, please?
It can get so scary on I don't know what's wrong. But really, if players are missing left or right consistently, one of those consistently, you're getting a big indicator of, it's really only down to two or three things that are possible to be wrong depending on the direction that they're missing. So if I'm going to assume everybody's a right-handed shooter, so flip this for lefties. If a right-handed shooter is missing to their left, all that really can be causing that is their hand gets over on the right side of the basketball, which will push the ball to the left. They could have their body turn to the left and just be generating a little energy going left while they shoot, or they start square and they rotate to the left as they're shooting. Okay? If you're seeing a left miss, it's going to be one of those three things. Okay? And it can be their hand starts in the correct position, but as they're lifting, you may need to take some slow motion video of their hand on the basketball and see that they're starting in the right position. Then at that last moment, they end up over here. Oh, that's what's causing it to go left there. Okay? If a right-handed shooter is missing to their right, really the only things that can cause it, it's a very unnatural motion for their lower body to move right as a right-handed shooter. So it's not that. It is going to be their shooting hand ends up over on the left side of the basketball ever so slightly, and that shooting hand is pushing it to the right. Or they're on the middle of the basketball, but they're pushing with their non-shooting hand. It's really kind of down to those two things. So missing left is the lower body either turned or rotating, or you getting your hand over on the right. Missing right is your hand getting over on the left, or are you pushing with your left? And if you're seeing consistent either direction, check those, because I almost guarantee it's going to be one of those things.
You talked about the 45-degree arc, how you finish that position there.
Yep.
Is there any way sort of you finish position impact on that 45 degrees? Or
Yeah. So the thing that I focus on, because obviously we don't have a machine that's going to shout out arc, and it's really hard for players to measure because they're standing in the worst possible spot to reference how high the ball went. It's much easier if the shooter's over here, it's much easier for me to stand there and be able to see. You're standing here, you can't really tell how high it went. So what I encourage players to look at is, can they get their elbow above their eyes as the ball is being released from their hand? And I think that last part of the sentence is the one that gets missed and is the most important part. It can't be obviously shoot it here, elbow below my eyes, pull my elbow above my eyes and expect that that's going to cause arc. It can't be after the ball's left my hand, and it can't be before you even start shooting it. So it can't be here like we talked about with Charlie, getting the ball above the eyes. Now we got a forward and down motion. It's got to be elbow above the eyes as the ball is leaving that hand, right in that sweet spot. And if you can do that, you stand a really good chance of getting decent arc. And I think most arc, we always talk about follow through, and we talk about the use of legs, and those are definitely possibilities for a flat arc, but I think missing the set point is the vast majority, that players either get here or they get there with their set point, making that move or this move more often than not. Ideally online, but and then true, and I haven't found a great way. To me, a true follow through is, I want the ball going up and forward. I'm able to just hold up and forward, as opposed to those players like the fake follow through is that one. As long as it's a true motion without a compensation that occurs after the basketball leaves their hand. That's the big one that I look for. Obviously, we want online. We do want elbow above the eyes. I get scared when I see that kind of a move. Does that answer the question? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for giving up your evening. I'm going to hang around if anybody has something that you're too shy to ask, or dawns on you before you leave, don't be shy, come and grab me. Before I wrap up, my notes from the 3 clinics that I did in Ballarat are on Coach Dave Love /Australia. So go to Coach Dave Love /Australia and you'll see 3 different links or buttons for the 3 different presentations that I did, plus a button to sign up for my newsletter, which is on coachdavelove.com. It's free and I provide a ton of content through that newsletter. And then there's also a link on there if next time I'm in Australia, if you would like to host a youth clinic, there's a little link that you can click there to submit to a request to host a clinic in the future. I plan to make this an annual trip. I think you have a delightful country with wonderful people and great basketball, and I love being here, so I'm going to try and come back every year. So before I wrap up, Coach, thank you very much for helping all this. And to the Lonergan family, because all of you are really involved in basketball. Again, like Peter, it's been a delight to get to know you. I love your sense of humor. I love just you as a person. This is probably the most generous person that I have been around, with his time, an elite high-level coach who just wants to grow the game. And you're very lucky to have this person involved in your city and your country at a high level, helping coaches become better. And so thank you very much for everything that you did over the last few months. I greatly appreciate you, and it's been a delight to get to know you. Thank you for everything. So thank you guys for your evening, giving up your evening, and safe travels back home. Come and ask questions if you have anything.
Would you please thank Coach?
Thank you. Oh, thank you very much.
Reading on the plane.
Oh, that's very nice of you. I appreciate it.
No worries.
Thank you.
Would you also thank Alex, Charlie, and Henry, please, for helping out?
Guys, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I forgot to mention that.
Thank you, coaches. All the best with it. And we'll have that up on YouTube within the next few days. And obviously you can also access Coach Dave Loves through his website, and that information is available through there. So thanks again. Thanks very much for coming.